This tiny building is a place where 134 students go to every day to learn. This is a school in Sumbawa, West Nusa Tenggara. This building having only 3 classrooms meant that 2 grade levels would have to share 1 classroom, a frail partition being the only thing separating 2 classes that are running simultaneously. As much as their teachers want to provide them with the lessons that they need, they just don't have the resources to do so. They're missing lessons that are integral to the learning process. They've never had English lessons, they've never had art lessons, and they've never had any proper physical education lessons. Another thing that they're missing is something very basic and simple to us, a toilet. This means that every single time a teacher would have to use the toilet, they would have to leave the premises and find the nearest toilet to them. Then, a global pandemic came. Like it was for all other schools, it made matters worse. In the beginning stages of this pandemic, this school could not transition into virtual learning, leaving 134 students without any formal education for months on end. This is largely because their area did not have the infrastructure to provide every single person with a stable internet connection. But really, if there was access to an internet connection for them, they would not be in school too, because some of their families could not provide them with the devices to do so. This story is just a grain in the sand. According to UNICEF, over 460 million students are not in school right now because they don't have the internet connection to do so. They don't have the devices to do so. Let that sink in. 460 million students not in school right now because of this pandemic. As we look to the future with an optimistic eye, a time where the pandemic is long behind us, where physical restrictions have been lifted, and a time that we call normal, I can't help but ponder, what is normal for them? Because normal for me would mean everything. It would mean that I'd be in school with my teachers and my friends, and I'd be learning with them. Their normal is a completely different ballgame. Their normal is broken, filled with imperfections and limitations. What I'm trying to tell you here is that these problems, they already existed even before the pandemic came. And they're problems that are faced by these children every single day. In the past, girls have been denied an education. Now in this pandemic, they are more likely to drop out of school because they are the ones that are seen to be responsible for household chores. Kids who saw school as their safe haven now have to be at home in toxic and sometimes even abusive environments. Children who could only learn in school because they didn't have sufficient electricity at home to do so now suffer the worst ends of this pandemic. Our normal is broken, and this pandemic just pushed it to its tipping point. And now it's our time to reinvent what normal is, to push our education system into a new state where every single child has quality education. On the bright side, access provision to education here in Indonesia has improved. Over the past few years, you can see an exponential increase, not only in the number of schools, but also the number of teachers and the gross enrollment rate. This works in tandem with the increased financial help from the central government. If it wasn't for the help from the central government, these kids would not be in school. Right now, they are in school because they don't have to pay at all. According to a 2017 study done by the Ministry of National Development Planning, financial incentives still become a significant determiner as to whether a child stays in school. In areas where municipalities are able to decrease the school fees, you can see that there is a lower dropout rate. But on the other hand, when assessed against the Program for International Student Assessment, 42% of 15-year-olds here in Indonesia do not meet the minimum standard. for reading, mathematics, and science. These two facts were contradictory, where access to education has improved, but quality of education stayed stagnant. This phenomenon is explained really well in this UNICEF quote. Schooling does not always lead to learning. Worldwide, there are more non-learners in school than out of school. This translates to the idea that being in school does not always mean you're learning. A concept that I think is familiar to many of you and definitely familiar to me, where you're in school and your teacher's trying to tell you something, but it goes in one ear and goes out the next. On a larger scale, this translates to the idea that access to education is not equivalent to quality education. That access to education is just the very first step into achieving quality education, and that we as a nation should strive for quality education. And there are a myriad of ways to achieve quality education. For example, providing these children with a more comfortable environment to learn in, by providing them a toilet, providing them a classroom where they can focus on one teacher at once. We could also train teachers to deliver their material in a more engaging way, in a way that is grounded in student participation. We could also reinvent the curriculum in a way that plays to every student's strengths. Again, there are a myriad of ways to improve the quality of education, ways that will reap benefits not only for these children, but also for this nation, and really every other nation who puts quality education as a priority. Throughout this talk, I've been talking about these institutional changes that will lead to a new state, a new time in education. And when you hear these big notions of change, you can't help but feel small. You can't help but think that without the budget of a whole government, you wouldn't be able to make real change. That without the power to change legislation, you wouldn't be able to make real change. But I'm telling you right here that you can make that change. And I can make that change. And together, we can make those real changes that matter. I've been lucky enough to come to know some of these 134 students. When I was running to become student council president, I knew one thing. I knew that I wanted to achieve this one thing, and that was to use the overwhelming amount of privilege we had here to help another in need. And this is how the idea for a collaboration project was born. We wanted to make this collaboration project where every student-led group could be involved. The concept was that every student-led group had something to offer that no other could, and that this collaboration would instigate real change. With this collaboration, we were able to provide them with tangible goods. Goods like books, goods like stationaries, goods like musical instruments and sports equipment. Now we are even in talks of building them a toilet. But what matters most to me and what I think will make the biggest impact to them is our virtual lessons. Every Saturday at 8 a.m. with partially sleepy eyes, we conduct these virtual lessons that they attend through the small screen of their teacher's phone. We conduct lessons all the way from English to pianica to singing to dancing. All these lessons that they've never had before. In fact, just before I went on, my friends just finished another one of our Saturday sessions where they were teaching the kids about food. In many of these lessons, we had to start from scratch. In this example, in this pianica session, these kids, they had to be taught the basic do, re, mi's, because this probably was their first exposure to music theory. The pianicas that we sent them were probably their very first musical instrument. This was also the case for our English sessions, where we had to teach them how to pronounce the basic ABCs, then could we move on to basic nouns. We're not perfect. We're really just a group of students trying to make real change. We don't have the teaching credentials to teach the curriculum in a perfect way. But what we can do, and I know we've done and will continue to do, is exposure. Expose them to the big world out there, to the big opportunities that they can embark upon. Push them to dream bigger than they ever thought they ever could. When we were planning and creating these teaching sessions, we had one thing in mind: our own elementary school experiences. We equally distribute the time between English lesson and arts-based lessons like pianica and dancing and singing, because we want to stress that those two things were equally important. This was important to me because I had an amazing arts education that shaped me to become the person I am today. We had this amazing drama teacher who showed us that we could express ourselves through the movement, and she really allowed us to move in any way we could, and that showed me that it was okay to express myself. I'd like to think that a part of her and her teaching is part of the reason why I'm here today talking to all of you. We also had this really amazing music teacher who showed us the importance of music in our everyday lives. I watched The Sound of Music for the very first time in his class, and it's still one of my favorite movies till today. But what I took from his lesson is that music can bring joy to people, and music can bring joy to every single person, like his classes brought joy to me. I hope that through our arts classes and our arts lessons, that we can also teach them and give them these valuable lessons that I learned from my teachers. When I was in elementary school, I loved playing games too. This is a picture of me in my Indonesian class here in this school, where we were playing the game Ular Naga, a traditional Indonesian game that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I'm the girl at the very front there. You can really see the joy radiating off of my face because I was really happy. Now, come to think of it, these are the moments that I'll remember. The moments that I have remembered until today and probably will remember forever. This is why it was so important for us to also integrate as many games and as many sing-alongs as possible. In our English lessons, we've been teaching them about family members. And to do that, we taught them the song Baby Shark. It has now become their favorite song, and every single lesson, it's been made a routine for us to start every single lesson with Baby Shark. These games are so fun, and these sing-alongs are so fun that we forget that they have educational value. Just last week, when we were doing Jeopardy, what we did was we showed a picture of a body part, and what they had to do was say what that body part was in English. The picture at that time was a knee. And this girl, I knew that she didn't know the word knee, so she was confused, and you could see the confusion on her face. But what she did instead of giving up was that she sang head, shoulders, knees, and toes and did the gestures to it. When she touched her knees and her mouth mouthed the word knee, it clicked to her that the answer to the Jeopardy question was knee, and she got the point for that. In that moment, it taught me that it doesn't matter if they forget every single one of our lessons. If they can remember every single song we sang together, every single game we played together, then they would already be miles ahead of where they were before. These kids, they've come so far. In the mere months that we've met them, we've conducted an online joint performance with them. This is a picture of our school community and theirs. Now, they are able to be inquirers because of the science books that we all gave them. Now, they are able to become artists because of the drawing equipment that we gave them. Now they are able to play Ibu Kita Kartini on the pianica. Now they are able to sing What a Wonderful World. Now they are able to tell you their family members in English. Every day I am in awe of how far they've come and how far we as a community has impacted them. But really, in the grand scheme of things, our change is insignificant and small. But imagine if every single one of you and every single community today did exactly what we did. It may just be one school for us, but together, it could be all the schools in Indonesia. It could be all the schools in the world. Because I'm sure that every single one of you here today can do exactly what I did. Maybe even better than I did. Because you already have the resources to do so. You have a device, an internet connection, and the knowledge that your teachers passed on to you. Now I'm telling you that it's time to pass it on to them. With these 3 things, we can change the face of education as we know it. With these 3 things, we can fulfill every child's right to a quality education. Thank you.